Welcome back to the Cleveland Baseball Talk podcast. I'm Joe Noga, joined by Paul Hoynes from Chicago, where the Guardians got some unexpected news this morning from Major League Baseball. Luis Ortiz, who is scheduled to start tonight against the Cubs at Wrigley Field, has been placed on the inactive list by Major League Baseball pending an investigation. That suspension should run through at least the All-Star break while MLB conducts the investigation. Hoynesy, we didn't hear in any of this language from the league anything about PEDs or drug violations or anything like that. So it leads us to believe that it might be something off the field other than maybe necessarily PEDs or steroids or anything like that.
Yeah, Joe, he was placed on a non-disciplinary leave through the All-Star break. The Guardians found out about it just before game time last night. That's what I've been told. Ortiz left the team. He returned to Cleveland, and Joey Cantillo will come up and take his spot in the rotation tonight. But as far as Ortiz goes, with the way I understand being placed on a non-disciplinary leave, he does not count on the 26-man or 40-man roster, and he will continue to be paid and collect service time.
So that means that there's an open spot on the 40-man roster right now, and the spot that Ortiz occupied on the 26-man active roster will be taken by Cantillo, who was already on the 40-man himself. So that leads you to believe that at some point there could be another move coming up regarding the bullpen. You've got guys who are on the 60-day injured list, like Trevor Stephan, who's recovering from an elbow injury. He could be ready to come back and be activated, or, there's Paul Sewald, who's also been rehabbing a shoulder injury. Those guys both pitched and are sort of ready to come off the list. And there might be a place for one or both of them in the bullpen for a team that, again, needs an arm, needs somebody to go out there, because Tanner Bybee went short in his outing yesterday, only 4 innings in the Guardians' 5-4 loss to the Cubs last night.
Yeah, Sewald and Trevor Stephan both pitched a scoreless inning for Columbus last night in Toledo, a 13-0 win, by the way. So I think those guys are getting close, Joe. I would think Stephan has probably had more rehab appearances than Sewald. He's probably closer to being recalled. He's been rehabbing that Tommy John surgery on his right elbow since last spring training. And I would not be surprised to see him in the clubhouse tonight.
So your opinion on, how this Luis Ortiz suspension, is going to play out or could play out, and the timing of it just couldn't be worse for this Guardians club. Struggling on offense, Ortiz is one of the only guys who can get you, on a regular basis, at least 5 to 6 innings per start. He's been going deeper into games. All things had looked like they had started to click, and he had been found that consistency that was sort of missing at the beginning of the year. Just how devastating is this blow to the Guardians rotation, with Ortiz not being able to make any starts between now and potentially beyond the All-Star game?
It definitely puts a crimp in their style, Joe. I mean, this was a guy, like you said, that was giving them consistently 6 innings. The overall record was not good, 4-9, 4.36 ERA, but he posted 16 times, made 16 starts. He gave them innings, he gave them strikeouts. He was inconsistent. He had one bad start, one good start, but he was part of that young rotation that they were developing, that they thought was together making progress. And now that progress is delayed, and who knows what's going to happen what is revealed through this MLB investigation. Will he be back after the All-Star break? Will he be able to pitch? Will he have to go down on a rehab assignment? So there's a lot of questions to be answered here.
Yeah, and if he does come back, how does this play on him mentally? This is a young guy. He was adjusting to coming to a new team, and he struggled with that, in spring training and into the start of the season. But you'd finally gotten to the point where you felt really comfortable when Luis Ortiz went out there, on a regular basis to start games. And now, how's he going to come back from that? If there's a suspension involved, if there's any sort of missed time, what it's going to look like. So yeah, this is a big blow. And you wonder when the Guardians sent Joey Cantillo out, about a month ago, and said, hey, we're going to stretch him out if he was in the bullpen. We're going to stretch him out to be a starter. Did they have any indication at that time that they knew this might be coming down the road? Go back even further to when they acquired him from Pittsburgh. How's a guy like Luis Ortiz, who's got all the measurables and looked like a guy who could be a piece in your starting rotation. How's he available in the offseason for a trade? Did the Pirates know about this? Did the Guardians know about this before they acquired him? And that's why they signed John Means and Shane Bieber and traded for Slade Ciccone to bolster the rotation. All of the conspiracy theories start working at some point. My tinfoil hat is over in the corner over here, but your brain just starts to work in that regard. How much did they know? What did they know, and when? And how does that play into their decision to bring Luis Ortiz into this rotation?
Yeah, Joe. I mean, the one thing we know is he's healthy. They did not trade it. He wasn't damaged goods, at least physically. A trade is always, what do they say? Buyer beware on the trade. You don't have to reveal everything when you make a trade. You can't do the teams exchange physicals, medical reports. But who else? If the investigation was going on way back when he was with the Pirates, who knows what the Pirates knew and what they were willing to reveal to Cleveland, or even if either team knows. But I know MLB investigates when steroids are involved. The team doesn't. They don't hear anything until usually the suspension is handed down, and I've got to believe that this is probably handled along the same lines.
Yeah, and the Guardians will not comment. We won't find anything out from the team. They won't reveal anything to us. They know what's going on, but they're under they're not being compelled at all to sort of reveal that right now. So we'll just have to wait and see with Ortiz and how the investigation plays out and whether or not he's going to be a part of this 2025 team moving forward. And right now, the 2025 team is not the direction of the 2025 team is a little bit in doubt as well. We talked about Tanner Bybee last night, staked to a 3-run lead early in the game. Bybee just goes out and can't protect the lead, and disaster strikes there in the 4th inning. Just take us through Tanner Bybee's night and just his reaction to it afterwards.
Yeah, Joe, and nobody takes a loss harder than Tanner Bybee, man. It's when he loses, it is it's written on his face. You can tell this is a guy. In the 2nd inning, Santana and Thomas hit consecutive home runs, give him a 2-0 lead. Then in the 3rd, David Fry hits his 2nd home run since returning, gives him a 3-0 lead. And by the end of the 5th inning or the end of the 4th inning, Chicago is winning 5-3. And Bybee just told the reporters it was pathetic. It didn't matter if they gave me a lead. I couldn't hold it. I blew it. He was beating himself up after the game. He only went 4 innings, Joe. It took him 96 pitches to go 4 innings, 5 runs, 6 hits. And, the thing that really hurt him was 4 walks. And that was, he had kind of, found the strike zone lately, but the 4 walks really hurt him. And you couple that with 5 strikeouts, you throw a lot of pitches, you give up 6 hits. Just a not a really good performance by Bybee. And he was, as usual, he was his own worst enemy.
Yeah, and
Worst critic, I should say.
Own worst critic for sure afterwards. And I kind of like the candor that he has afterwards. When he has a bad outing, he'll tell you he had a bad outing and he knows it. But right now, he hasn't won a game since what, May 22nd?
May 22nd, yeah. He's
more than a month.
4 in his last 5 starts. Just last 6 starts, I should say. He's really struggling.
Yeah, and it's more of a struggle to figure out how to win games and how to put opponents away, as opposed to having the stuff, because that's there. We saw him with 2 runners in scoring position last night, strike out three guys in a row. I mean, that's something that, ace kind of stuff that he has. He has that ability. He just hasn't, it's somewhere it's lost out there in the ether, I think, for him, the ability to go out there and, just get through an inning efficiently and give your team, the offense isn't doing him any favors by being as slow as it is, as inconsistent as it is. But, he compounds it by not being able to put an opponent away.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And he has really, his numbers have been better, He's pitched better than his record, I should say. What is he now? 4-9, Joe. They've got a lot of guys with 9 losses, pushing to 10 losses. But Bobby has pitched better than that. He's only got, his ERA is 4.20. That means he's not giving up. He's still pitching well. And we were talking about this before the game. This is a guy that's really in his third full season. You kind of really you forget how young he is and how inexperienced he is. He hasn't been in the big leagues that long. He's had a lot put on his shoulders, following Shane Bieber's injury. He kind of became the ace, and he kind of relished that role. He relishes the role, but there's some pressure that comes with that as well.
Yeah, and signing the contract in the offseason, probably added to that pressure internally. I know the organization isn't sort of necessarily pressuring him in that way, but that he wears it every time he goes out there. He feels the weight of maybe that contract and the expectation that comes with it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He did sign the extension in spring training, and like you said, Joe, a lot comes with that. Yes, it's great to have your future taken care of, but along with that becomes okay, you're the lead dog. We need to win when you go out to the mound. You've got to stop losing streaks. You've got to get us back on track. And I'm sure all those things are going through Bobby's mind.
Yeah. Speaking of the lead dog for the Guardians, Jose Ramirez, in a bit of a funk, in a bit of a slump ever since, getting hit on the forearm and missing a game after the Toronto series. Just, what have you seen lately out of Jose Ramirez? Are you worried at all about Jose?
I am a little worried, Joe. Everyone says his right forearm is fine since he got hit by Gosman, I think, June 26th. But since he got hit, he missed a game. He came back. He's 0 for 19. Has not had a hit. And, he said that yesterday after he was named to the All-Star team, as an All-Star starter, we should say, he's fine. Vogt told me he's fine. But, the swing doesn't look fine to me, Joe. It looks a little slow. Looks a little labored.
Yeah, and I think he also talked about the possibility of if he was invited to compete in the home run derby, he might want to do that again for the third straight year, and that could compound things as well. Before we dive deeper into Jose and his all-star stats and everything, I want to go back to Tanner Bybee really quickly. I forgot to mention the controversial situation there with the runner missing first base in yesterday's game. Just take us through that inning and what transpired and what Stephen Vogt said afterward and what could happen tonight.
Yeah, definitely a weird kind of bounce in the fourth inning, Joe. Matt Shaw, Chicago's third baseman, with 1 out, reaches on a single behind second base. Angel Martinez ranged over behind the bag, had the ball, backhanded the ball, and then tried to flip it to, Rocchio so he could throw Shaw out at first. But the ball never made it to Rocchio. So Shaw reaches first base, runs through the bag, but doesn't touch the bag. And Rocchio retrieves the ball, throws it Santana. Santana looks like he gets the tag down as Shaw dives back to the bag. But by that time, the play was slow developing. The ball kind of was rolling around behind second base for a while. And by that time, the plate umpire, Jacob Metz, had tossed a new ball into play to Bybee. And, that killed the ball, the play on the field. And, Vogt came out, the first base umpire, Vic Carapazza, the crew chief, hadn't made a call at first base yet. And, but with the new ball being on the field, the play was dead. Vogt went over to talk to both umpires, and they said, "Can we review this? Can we challenge this?" And they said, "No, since the play was killed, that's it. The guy was safe." And it turns out to be a 3-run inning, crucial 3-run inning that gave him a 5-2 lead or 5-3 lead, and ended up being the difference in the game. And afterward, Vogt said it was, that a mistake was made. An unfortunate call was made that cost him 3 runs. Carlos Santana said it definitely cost him the game.
Yeah, an umpire error, I guess, umpire's mistake, my bad, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You don't get a do-over in the major leagues. It's not like that, but that one definitely kind of stood out as kind of questionable. Vic Carapazza at first base was doing the right thing by not making a call, by letting the play develop the whole way. It's the home plate umpire Mets who really screwed up by sort of jumping the gun and sort of the game speeding up on him, I think, in a little bit of a way like that. Behind the plate, his calls were excellent. His strike zone was really solid. He had a good game in that regard. It's just the dead ball management and the while the play is going on sort of thing. It's funny. I was at my kid's 16U baseball game last night, and a very similar thing happened where a kid hit a pop up on the infield with runners on second and third, and the umpire in the field called the infield fly rule. And so the shortstop from the other team let the ball drop on the infield, and the runner went to first, and he was safe, and they had no recourse. They couldn't do anything because the umpire made a mistake and said, I shouldn't have called the infield fly rule, which he did, and they couldn't change it. You can't go back and have an oopsie do over. That's just like, so that was the same situation last night, only it wound up costing the Guardians the game because, like you said, it went for 3 runs.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing a slow boil inside Stephen Vogt here. He's a pretty even-keeled guy, but he's been on the field 3 or 4 of the last games arguing with the umpires. I would not be surprised to see, depending how this series goes and how the Detroit series goes this weekend, I would not be surprised to see him leave a game early, Joe.
Yeah, maybe a early trip to the showers is in order, just to get things going and stir the pot. And Stephen Vogt knows all the tricks when it comes to that kind of thing. So I think he's been kicked out of 1 game so far in
One
his
game,
career.
yeah,
One
one
game
game.
last year, I believe it was in Minnesota. Usually, this is a guy who has a really good relationship and rapport with the umpires, but might be time to set one off if you're Stephen Vogt. Let's get back to Jose Ramirez. The good news before the game: Jose Ramirez elected to his 7th All-Star game as a starter. He will be there for the 4th time, starting at third base for the American League. This is historic for the Guardians franchise. No player in club history has been elected to start 4 times. He was tied with Sandy Alomar and Kenny Lofton in that regard. This is his 7th election as an All-Star. I believe, what is Bob Feller 8? Who's the
Yeah,
franchise
Feller
leader
with
is
8
8.
is the franchise leader.
So, I mean, he's got 1 more to go to Ty Feller in that regard. This is forearm bruise or not, this is still one of the most dangerous hitters in baseball. I think since 2021, he has the most hits in All-Star play as individually. Just, a guy you definitely want to see there in Atlanta, and a well-deserved start for Jose Ramirez.
Yeah, definitely, Joe. And it was kind of cool. Jose thanked the fans for voting for him in phase 1 and phase 2 of the voting. And he said, that I really appreciate him this year because I don't think I've really had the year I want to have, the year I've been working toward. So they really kind of picked him up. He said thank you to the fans. But Joe, he's still having a pretty good year. He's got 13 home runs, 38 RBIs, a bunch of stolen bases. He's been in a little bit of a funk right now, but he's through the first 2.5 months, 3 months of the season, he's been he's led the parade here for the Guardians. He's been a team leader on and off the field.
Yeah, I think without Jose's batting average factored in, I think the Guardians would be hitting something around the 200 mark with like a 620 OPS, something like that, without Jose's numbers. So you talk about how much he means to a club. That's what it is. Steven Kwan was also a finalist. He did not make the cut, the final vote. But what's your opinion when I tell you that Javi Baez is going to be a starter in the outfield for the American League?
Yeah, that's a strange one, Joe. But I think the success the Tigers are having helped Javi there, and obviously he's played pretty well too, Joe. You got to give him credit. Veteran guy that lost his shortstop job and was willing to move around and show his versatility. These guys are all baseball players. They can, I think they can. Most of these guys you could shake them up and put them anywhere on the diamond, and they could do a pretty good job.
Javi Baez couldn't cut it as a shortstop. They moved him to the outfield, and now because Detroit's in first place, they voted him in. And come on, Hoynes, come on.
That's the way it goes.
Place.
Look at the
Steven
Guardians
Kwan
had 5 All-Stars last year.
Steven Kwan is not going to be your starter in the All-Star game because Javi Baez couldn't find a place on the field and they stuck him in the outfield. Come on. All right.
But he's still got a shot, right? He's still got a shot as
right. Yeah. Obviously, Steven Kwan's he's going to be there in Atlanta. We talked about Jose Ramirez, All-Star. Am I going to get in trouble, Hoynes, then?
Sherman's March to the Sea.
There we go. As far as our daily mention of Chase DeLauder and all of those reinforcements that are someday coming from Columbus, the Big Three had a big night for the Clippers against Toledo in a huge win. I think they won 13-0, something like that,
Yeah.
in Toledo. A Chase DeLauder, a 2-run double. Juan Burrito, a grand slam. CJ Kifus, a 3-run home run. If Luis Ortiz and the ship is sinking fast, how soon before we see one, two, or all three of those guys on the major league roster?
Yeah, I think that's coming fast, Joe. I would imagine, who knows, maybe when they when they come back from maybe Friday night, who knows? But I think definitely after the All-Star break, we start seeing some movement.
Yeah, I would ask you for today's reason why Chase DeLauder isn't already on the roster, but anything you're going to tell me, I'm just going to laugh at. So there really isn't a reason right now. He's proven that he can hit and needs to take that next step to finish his development at the major league level.
Yeah, I was thinking, Joe, maybe one of the reasons he's not here right now, Chicago started two lefties in the first two games of this series. So that might have something to do with it.
Yeah, we saw that. I believe Reese Olson is going to come off the injured list and start Friday for the Tigers on July 4th at Progressive Field. So maybe it's time for Chase DeLauder at that point. We've got we got a long way to go between now and then. Hoynesy, that's going to wrap up today's edition of the Cleveland Baseball Talk podcast. We will check in with you again on Monday. Have a happy 4th of July and a safe trip back from Chicago.
All right, Joe. Thanks, man.